Palestine more than land, a question of destiny. Imagine if the world were vast, continents stretched endlessly, rivers flowing freely, and countless lands available for settlement. What was it that drew a people, thousands of years later, to a single patch of earth? It was not just geography that called them, it was memory. This was not about a piece of land, it was about the heart of history itself. Palestine is not simply a spot on a map. It is a place where tradition, faith, politics, and human psychology intertwine so deeply that separating truth from feeling becomes nearly impossible. For the Jewish people, the story of Palestine is not just political planning. Its roots run deep in their religious traditions. They call it the Promised Land, the place where their prophets walked, where a sacred kingdom once thrived, and where a magnificent house of worship, the Temple of Solomon, was built. In their collective consciousness, this land is not like any other. It is a spiritual center. Centuries of exile, persecution, and displacement only strengthened this connection. When a people repeatedly face the blows of history, they anchor their identity to something tangible, and Palestine became that anchor. But the story does not stop with Jewish tradition. For centuries, Muslims have lived on the same land. For them, it is not just a place to live, it is a part of their faith. Here stands Al-Aqsa Mosque, the site linked to the Prophet's miraculous journey to the heavens, a place second only to Mecca and Medina in spiritual significance. A single geographical region became the focal point of two distinct religious consciousnesses. When faith intertwines with land, conflict transcends borders, it becomes a matter of identity. Viewed beyond emotion, human history reveals an important truth. Communities do not fight only for resources, they fight for memory. Psychology shows us that collective identity is a fundamental part of human existence. When a group feels its identity is threatened, it becomes defensive, even if that requires the use of force. In Palestine, the story attached to the land mattered more than the land itself. In the late 19th century, as waves of nationalism swept through Europe and Jewish communities faced discrimination across multiple countries, a political movement emerged aiming to establish a national homeland. It drew on historical claims and made Palestine the center of this dream. At the time, Arab communities already lived there, seeing the land as their home for generations. Two dreams collided on the same ground. This conflict was not merely religious, it was shaped by colonial politics, global power interests, and the helplessness of local populations. After World War I, British control over the region and conflicting promises complicated matters further. Support was hinted for a Jewish homeland, while local Arabs were shown the dream of self-rule. Contradictions bred distrust, and distrust bred violence. The human mind is complex. Once it believes in its own rights, it often loses the ability to recognize another's. In Palestine, each side began to see itself as the victim and the other as the occupier. This perception passed from generation to generation. Children grew up hearing their own suffering and seeing others as the oppressor. A collective consciousness formed in which empathy diminished. In 1948, with the declaration of Israel, a new reality emerged. Millions of Palestinians were displaced, a catastrophe they call the Nakba, a wound seared into collective memory. For Jews, it was the fulfillment of centuries of longing to safe haven, an independent state. One event became the source of two conflicting emotions, joy and grief, freedom and loss. Scientific and social analysis shows that in areas with limited resources and growing populations, conflict intensifies. Water, land, jobs, and security become more powerful than slogans. These factors are all present in the Israel-Palestine conflict. Yet above all stands another, even more potent element, the sense of sacredness. When a place is deemed holy, compromise becomes nearly impossible. Because any concession can feel like a betrayal of faith, the greatest victims are ordinary people, the farmer trying to tend his crops, the child wanting to attend school, the mother seeking safety for her family. From a human welfare perspective, the conflict teaches a crucial lesson. When identity is weaponized politically, basic human needs are sidelined. Walking on the land of Palestine, one can hear the echo of history. Stones bear the marks of civilizations, streets whisper prayers, and the air carries a persistent unease, one that has spanned centuries. Each generation carries its share of pain forward. Some call it resistance, some defense, but at its core, it is the struggle for human survival. Through the lens of empathy, it becomes clear that both sides live in fear, the fear of losing their land, of having their identity erased, of their children's future being destroyed. Fear hardens people, yet beneath it lies a shared desire for peace. No mother wants her child in war. No father wants his home reduced to rubble. The conflict raises fundamental questions. Is ownership of land an innate human instinct or a social construct? Can a sense of sacredness unite, or will it always divide? History shows that when two peoples claim the same land as their destiny, political negotiation alone cannot resolve the issue. It requires a shift in consciousness, an understanding that truth is rarely singular. The choice of Palestine was never just about fertility or strategic location, it was about symbolism. For Jews, it was the recovery of a historical memory. For Muslims, it was a cornerstone of faith. This symbolic power sets it apart from all other lands, and yet it is also what makes it a center of conflict. Even today, as news from the region unfolds, history seems relentless. Every event reopens old wounds. Yet perhaps a door to hope exists where people learn to connect their pain with the pain of others. After all, land is meaningless without people, and people are incomplete without peace. This is not the story of a single nation, it is the story of humanity. It reminds us that when we make a place the center of our identity, we must also consider who else breathes there. Perhaps the real question is not why Palestine was chosen, but whether it can become a place where two stories coexist rather than erase one another.